First of all, thank you for the opportunity to share my concerns. I appreciate you taking so much time out of your day and evening to be here. Thanks to everybody for staying. I speak today as a concerned parent and also as a New York State certified elementary and special education teacher with 6 years experience teaching in the New Hartford Central School District. I'd like to make it very clear that I am a firm believer in the promise of public schools, and I hold teachers in the highest regard, not because I have chosen teaching as my profession, but because day after day, night after night, teachers and school staff keep the best interests of my child at the front of their minds. I'm able to sleep well at night knowing that my child is cared for in my absence. And to the teachers here today, I'd like to say thank you. Thank you. Unfortunately, teachers' efforts to thoughtfully educate my 6-year-old child are being overrun by a corporate reform agenda better known as Common Core. Touted as the means by which we will improve our schools and better prepare students, on paper and at first glance, Common Core may sound like a wonderful idea. Do not be fooled. Any good intentions of Common Core, if there really were any, were immediately minimized during their development 4 years ago with the presence of corporate America and the glaring absence of experienced teachers, special educators, and child development experts. Perhaps this is why we see developmentally inappropriate curriculum being pushed down to the lowest grades, a lack of socialization and play, and a drop in the overall well-being of all students. In choosing to backwards map the Common Core, we have raised the bar so high that students, particularly our youngest and those with special needs, they are not developmentally able to succeed. Moreover, we have stolen our children's opportunity to build a solid foundation of self and a solid foundation for learning and traded it in for standardized tests that will be used to determine teacher, principal, and school effectiveness. With such high stakes attached to tests, I cannot in good conscience be angry with teachers, principals, or superintendents for attempting to make the best of the unfunded reform agenda being thrust upon them. After all, with only 2 signatures, Commissioner King's and Governor Cuomo's, every single one of them also found themselves and their own careers caught in the middle of this nightmare. I can, however, ask that we work together to make things right and insist that our school leaders stand up for students rather than pander to state ed. I urge parents to speak with teachers, principals, and superintendents to voice their concerns. Too much homework? No time for science instruction in the classroom? Too many tests? Skipping snack time to get work done? It need not be this way, and it should not be this way. Parents, demand from school leaders that we stop this race to nowhere and do not take high standards, college and career ready, or we might lose money for an answer. It is time our school leaders stop hiding behind the erroneous and misguided demands of the state education department and instead start standing up for children. Parents, refuse to participate in New York State grade 3-8 exams this spring. Network with others locally, opt out CNY to find out how. Parents, it is up to us to lead the way and demand better. Parents, it is up to us to speak out for every single child in New York State. That is why I'm here this evening. As a parent of a young child who is being robbed of the opportunity to build a solid foundation for learning, and as an educator who cares about the well-being of every single child across this state, it is not okay to say, my child is doing fine. This is bigger than that. I'm here to ask our state legislators to stand by me and demand better for our children. And on that note, I thank you. Common Core are not the answer to our problems. In fact, to address our students' needs, it must first be acknowledged that any positive aspects of Common Core cannot prevail when tied to the corporate reform agenda of the wealthy, including State Ed's own Chancellor Meryl Tisch, who's given $1 million of her own money to support Common Core in New York. In addition, I urge you, our state legislators, to appoint regents who will place a moratorium on Common Core, high-stakes testing, and the uploading of information to the in-bloom cloud. Most of all, respect and leadership must be returned to the conversation. Time and time again, Commissioner King and Chancellor Tisch have dismissed the valid and real concerns of their constituents. While their push to implement Common Core in New York State was an egregious error, their lack of attention to the concerns of students, parents, teachers, and school leaders across New York State goes against the most essential element of successful teaching in humankind: respect. Let us go back to the drawing board, develop standards in a democratic fashion, and involve all stakeholders in the process so that we can return focus to those who deserve it most, our children. Thank you.
Likewise, I'd like to thank you very much for making the time and space for us all here to have our voices heard. It brings us a lot of peace to know that there is someone, or there are a group of people who are listening, so thank you, really. Many before here tonight have poured out their feelings and their souls in recounting the horrors that we've had to endure in the last year dealing with state ed's reform agenda. And I could share some of those with you, but what I've chosen to do instead is read a letter written by a school leader in Rensselaer, New York. And it's kind of a how-to guide on how we can prepare our kids to be successful for the future. It reads, "Dear parents, 2 weeks ago I attended the New York State Association of Independent School Heads of School conference. The conference featured Yang Zhao, an author and professor at the University of Seattle. Zhao's message focused on the importance of developing an educational system and curriculum that cultivates key skills like creative and strategic thinking, digital learning, and problem solving. As a son of Chinese farmers, he said he was a failure at being a peasant. He talked about how he has lived his life pursuing what we all pursue, not failing. He pointed out that he's not alone in that failing. None of us like to fail. Yet in U.S. schools, the focus is on student deficits rather than strengths. This in turn leads to student disengagement. He also described his goal for his daughter at age 15 not to live in his basement. This is accomplished by helping children discover and practice what they are good at and help them discover these skills and expertise. He also talked about the strengths of the students in his homeland, China, and those in India. They are strong test takers. Students in the U.S. have not been strong test takers, even for 50 years ago. Strengths of the U.S. have been in creativity and innovation. The U.S. has been concerned about the Chinese exceeding the U.S. in academic skills, and the Chinese have been concerned that their education system will not produce the next Steve Jobs or creative entrepreneurs until the changes to the Chinese educational systems occur. This is already happening. In August, the Chinese Ministry of Education announced significant changes in primary, releasing the 10 regulations to lessen academic burden for primary school students. In order to best prepare our children, Zhao said we need to help them develop entrepreneurial qualities such as risk-taking, empathy, confidence, alertness to opportunity, all the soft skills that are extremely important. In U.S. schools, we attempt to take curiosity, passion, and creativity, multiple intelligences, cultural diversity, and individual differences, and squash them through the sausage maker school system, zapping these qualities into what we think will be an employable worker. He asked the question, what is the best way to kill curiosity in students? The answer? Give them all the answers. Cramming and covering vast quantities of information kills curiosity. He pointed to a study done years ago where children were asked in first grade, who in this class is an artist? Everyone raises their hand. The same question is asked again in senior high, and few raise their hands. If you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing it is stupid. Albert Einstein. Zhao says that investing in testing will only create good test takers, and test scores are not valid predictors of success. If we invest our resources in tests, we will get good test takers. If we spend our time celebrating and encouraging our variety of abilities, creativity, and diverse thinking, we will better help our students to succeed. Testing should be a tool, not the focus. Test scores are a poor reflection of what our students could be learning and distract teachers from the real work of helping students discover, be curious, work collaboratively, and interact with each other in meaningful ways. Interestingly, he also mentioned his children went to a Montessori school. For more on Yang Zhao, please visit his website. Have a wonderful weekend. Sincerely, Susan Cambrick, Head of School, Woodland Hills Montessori School. For those in the room that don't know, Woodland Hills Montessori School is the private school where Commissioner John King has chosen to send his own children. I am certainly not the first critic to cast light on this hypocrisy, and trust me, it gets my ire up that he's capable of such a contradiction. But it's not why I chose to share this letter. Many have called him out before on that. The reason I chose to share this letter is because I want everybody to know what our schools should look like. And I want to make the case that many of us, I mean you four for sure, but everybody in this room, we share that vision, oddly enough, including John King. I, like many, have been pushing to bring an ed to the state ed agenda for the last year. And lately I've had a question in my mind, and that's, when we're successful and we get rid of that agenda, what then? The time to start thinking about what comes next is now. There are many who are ready and willing to roll up their sleeves and get busy preparing repairing all the damage that's been done. And all we need is the collective will to stop where we are, admit that we've made a mistake, and start over. Public schools are the foundation of our communities, the cradle of our economy, and the parents in this room will no longer stand for our schools to be privatized and our children commoditized. The parents in New York State have woken up, and we will not rest until we have our schools back, and we will take them back. And I know we can do it because I don't have to tell you, we have seen courage and leadership spring from every town, hamlet, and city in New York State. The concern for our children has brought us together, and our collective voice will no longer be silenced. And so with that, I want to thank you very much for carrying our voice back to Albany, and please let your colleagues, your other elected colleagues and appointed colleagues in Albany know that we will not stop until we have our schools back. Thank you.